TNA fam, I'm back. I didn't think I was actually going to do another episode, but I am back here at the episode podcast to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans because, oh my god, I've just seen this. ec3, his contract with the NWA has come to an end now, of course. Tempering expectations just slightly. Yes, of course. He could go to AEW. He could go to WWE. What more interesting to me, this is just before the AMC debut. He could come back to TNA on the AMC debut episode. What the heck is going on? I didn't even know about this. I hadn't even heard rumors about this. And he did say, like, a little bit of a tease, but then again, like, he's had a lot of this stuff in his gimmick for a long time of saying he's the 1% and whatnot, or whatever. So he did say, the 1% isn't just a gimmick, he is, basically that guy, so to speak. That's insane. That he, like I said, I didn't even know that his contract was coming up. I'm sure that, again, he would have offers to go to AEW or WWE equally. Look, here's the thing. Let me say this as simply as possible. He's had two big opportunities. Well, really one big opportunity, but he's had two very big opportunities with WWE. Neither of them have panned out. Yes, it's new management now or whatever else it is, but it didn't pan out before. He had the opportunity, or he's had the opportunity for a long time to go to AEW, and he hasn't. Yes, he's had the same opportunity to go to TNA, but he hasn't. But I feel like there's a reason why he hasn't gone to AEW. He was trying to forge his own path, forge himself, And look, the thing is, I would understand if he goes to WWE or AEW because, hey, look, how much longer has he got left? Who knows? He's probably got a few years left at best, especially at the peak, If he wants to work one big last main event run, this is the time to do it, and then go out on top and then go and do whatever else he wants to do. After that, sure, okay, cool. I don't know how, I said this before with WWE. WWE wouldn't, he wouldn't be calling them, and saying, hey, pick me up, baby. And even if he was, it wouldn't matter because WWE right now have a don't call us, we'll call you mentality, which is fine, but that's how it is. But then again, they've seen him twice, and so, hey, last roll of the dice to get this guy on your roster. But then again, they've got basically every other man and his child under the sun underneath their umbrella, except for just about everyone else that AEW's got underneath the sun in their company. So that's the problem. Both of those companies are absolutely stacked. Even if he goes to WWE or AEW, which he's perfectly, allowed to do, where's he going to fit in? Where? I cannot think of a place that he would fit in because there's already thousands of guys on each roster at this point, I feel like, that he'd have to get through to get literally anywhere. And I feel like everyone else is their pet project or whatever else it is, and he's never been looked at. And he hasn't been able to do anything in NWA, but that's NWA shooting itself in the foot and doing stupid things and whatever else in some regards, and just being so small and being so irrelevant for so long that it's yeah, what do you expect? Obviously you can't just pull a company out of the ground completely by yourself. you know, and look, if this is something that he's wanted to do, hey, that's for him to do, you know. And we knew about the control your narrative stuff and how well that went. So I don't know. He, like, obviously you could say the dude's gonna retire. Like, I don't think so, but like maybe. But is he done? Is he really done? I just don't feel it. I don't know. Like, obviously I say all the positives about coming to TNA, but there's always negatives to go to anywhere. Like, of course there's positives to go to WWE. Of course there is. But there are negatives. Like, people don't think about some of those negatives of saying, hey, how many weeks do you have to work? You know, days you have to work a year. You know, does he want to work for Triple H and Shawn and be associated with the whole situation with them and Trump and all of that sort of stuff? He's a very rebellious sort of guy in some ways. I don't know whether he'd be like to be associated with that, or whether he's like comfortable with that, or he'd be like maybe you can then say, hey, well, why would he work with TNA since TNA is working with WWE? You know, you can make that argument. Fair enough. I understand that. So, yeah, but still, why would you, like, would he really go to WWE considering those situations? I don't know either. Like, there's always something else. It's not just saying, hey, he could go there and do stuff or whatever. But I just saw this happening to scroll through some posts, and I thought, whoa, I've got to talk about this, dudes. You know? Because that's huge. Like, in many ways. Like, some people wouldn't consider it to be huge, but I do. I consider it, like, ec3 to me, even though, like, he had his TNA run, I still feel like he could have a huge main event run. One more big main event run. I think that he's due one more big main event run, a proper main event run, where he's actually in front of more than 2 people and a dog. You know? Like, not to be mean to NWA, but that's their situation. You know? They're on an even lower tier than what TNA has been on, and people have been saying that 2 people and a dog watched them for the last, like, 5 to 10 years or whatever it's been. It's only in the last, like, couple of years that people have actually started going, oh shit, you know, TNA's on the rise, you know, really on the rise, you know, not just things are getting better or things are getting more stable or whatever else. No, we're actually, like, selling out bigger arenas, we're doing international tours, you know, whatever, all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, we understand that, you know, we've got to see, you know, what happens next with him, and whatever does happen with him, like I say, with anything and anyone. If he goes to WWE or AEW, good luck to him, or whatever. If he goes to New Japan or whatever it is, or he even retires, I don't know what he's going to do. That's up to him. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to sit here and whinge and moan and cry and whatever else about if he doesn't turn up. I'm just going to be excited if he turns up. If he doesn't turn up, then I'm going to be like, okay, cool. Well, he's going somewhere else then, I'm assuming, at least. And then we'll see where he goes. If he, you know, maybe, I don't know whether we'll ever talk about him. If we ever, you know, if he doesn't come to TNA, but, like, maybe he'll go to NXT and maybe he'll have something to do with somebody in TNA or something at some point. Who knows? We never know. So again, like, that's the thing, like, where it's like, oh, okay, maybe, who knows, or whatever. But, like, again, yeah, like, obviously I want him to come to TNA, but again, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh man, he didn't come, oh, whoa, what, my life is ruined. No, what will I ever do? No, move the fuck on. Like, that's what I mean. I'm invested to the point of saying, cool, if you're on my screen and you're working here, or you can work here, cool, great, good, do it then. If you're not going to come here and work, you're going to go somewhere else, cool, go do it. I hope people that are over there, wherever he goes, enjoy him and get to see him, and he gets to do a great, cool thing and gets the one last, like, bite at the apple. And maybe that's why he might sign with WWE, because he might be like, I've come here twice. Both times I haven't made it. This is my last chance. I'm on my last legs, blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever else it is. You've missed out on me, da-da-da-da. All this stuff. I'm one of the greatest people that has never won that belt. It is my time now to win that belt. I don't know. That would obviously be his thing there, I feel like. You know. And that makes sense, I think. But, again, like, just to say, oh, I can't come through the doors here, or I can't, you know, because, again, that's how I think, like, how much interest would WWE have? Like, that's what I mean. Not a lot. Not none, perhaps, but not a lot. But if you come into TNA on their AMC debut, you make a lot of noise, and you say, okay, I'm one step closer to WWE because, hey, they've got that partnership. And again, I'm not saying that everything else that I just said before negates it or whatever. I'm just saying that exists and you've got to consider it. You know what I mean? About all that shenanigans with Trump or whatever else and anything like that, or number of dates, or however much he's going to get paid, or whether or not they're actually going to put him back in NXT for the third time or whatever else it is, or who knows what else, you know, or fumble him for the third time, or whether he wants to go through all of that, or whatever else it is. But again, maybe that is what he wants and wants to do. I don't know. But again, if you come to TNA, make a big splash, even for 6 months, whatever it is, and then say, okay, look, WWE, I just made a huge splash over there in your, you know, in the company that you have a partnership with. Or even if you say, oh, well, they no longer have that partnership or whatever it is. I don't know. But, like, I've made a big splash over there. You know, you can then say, hey, come on, either sign me up or leave me alone. You know, I've got stuff to do if I can come there. But if you're not interested, hey, I'm not coming then. Right? You know, you've had your chance, you know, seems like you're not interested, you know, or whatever, you're not interested enough, but whatever, if you know, I'll continue to plug away then, you know. So that's what he should do, in my opinion. He should come, make a big splash, say, look, I can be a valuable player over there if you want me over there. But if you don't want me over here, well, I'm just going to be the big player over here, you know? And for me, like, again, like, besides saying, hey, you know, you guys missed on me twice. Like, instead of just saying that, well, they've missed on me 3 times now, you know, kind of thing. And because they had the chance to sign me again, they've had many chances. They could have been talking to him for the last couple of years. I think he had a contract up a year or 2 ago, whatever it was. I don't know. I haven't paid attention, but you know what I mean. Like, contracts are up, well, I don't say all the time, but they're up all the time. And they could have been talking to him. They could have talked to him already. I don't know, but who knows? So all this could be, like, worth nothing, but I think it's worth talking about because I'm like, dude, that is a huge pickup for TNA if they can get it, and it's huge for EC3 if he's gonna come here, honestly. Like, you know, maybe he thinks he's above that, but realistically, TNA's the best shot for him if he really wants to go to WWE and say, okay, you know, I made this huge splash this year, and now I'm on your roster again, or you have the chance to get me on your roster again. Because that's the only way that he can make a big splash before going to WWE and make them go, well, shit, we really need to bring this guy in, you know, or whatever. no, we really need to bring this guy in. No, we were just not, we weren't really thinking about it, or we were umming and erring, or whatever. We didn't really see what role he'd play, or whatever else it is. No, he's money. We've got to bring him in as soon as possible. Right, cool. Get him on the phone. Ask him, hey, how much? Whatever. I don't know whether they even want to do that because, again, like I've said it, they've got every man and dog under the sun pretty much that they could ever want. And that's why, again, like I say things about like some of the guys that they've picked up from TNA or seemingly going to pick up from TNA or whatever. It's like, dudes, you've got literally every person and thing that you would want underneath your roster. You're not trying hard enough if you haven't got enough people to work with, Yes, in a few years or whatever, you might need some more younger people or whatever it is. But still, like, you've got enough people to work with. You just haven't pushed enough of them or made them enough into that thing or whatever else. Or the people that you have tried to push, they haven't panned out because they've tried to push Austin Theory like 3 or 4 different times and it hasn't panned out a single time, basically. So it's time to basically give up on that idea of, hey, he'll be something or he'll go somewhere and he'll make a name for himself. No, he's not. That's it. He's done his thing. It hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked, and it hasn't worked again. So it's time to say, okay, we've tried everything with you. You're not, like, even as a heel, you're not getting to the point of, like, that we could use you or anyone really cares. There's just apathy, whatever. And I don't mean to be mean to the guy or anything. I think he'd actually do really well in TNA, perhaps, or even AEW, perhaps. I don't know. But, like, the experiment hasn't worked with him. And I don't know specifically what it is. Maybe it's just the over-pushed nature of it. Maybe, like, letting fans decide, okay, we actually do want to see this guy. Okay, he's been here for a while. He's been putting in his dues for a while, for a long while. Not just, he's been here for a little while and maybe a few people are like, oh yeah, he could do stuff, or we'd like to see him maybe get a push or whatever. No, people have to be like rabidly behind him to be like, no, this guy, and then you have to give it to him. But even then he's going to be a heel, so it's, he's at least mostly a heel, so it's like, well, he's in a difficult position, like as being a heel, because you're always going to be in that position of people being like, oh, this guy, this heel, so that's harder to book heels, but it's like, that's why you've got to be, like that with the fans. It's like harder to gauge where you're at with them in a way, but it's like, do they make your babyface more compelling, or do they make the story more compelling, or whatever else it is, or whatever? That's what you, like, look at. But anyway. So, yeah. Guys, that's pretty much it all I've got to say anyway. Yep. So, yeah. That's so crazy. Like, I think the future for him, he did say that there is a future ahead for him. So that's interesting. Because, again, it's like you assume that's in wrestling. Because you wouldn't just say, there's a future ahead for me. Of course there's a future ahead for you. What do you mean? You're not dead, obviously, type thing. So it's like, yeah, of course there's a future ahead for you. But you're not saying that. What you're saying is, hey, I will have a future in wrestling, effectively. So that's where that's at. Anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed this one, and hope you'll join me again in another one.